Welcome to the virtual worship of Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. My name is Charles Loflin, and I have the privilege of serving as your ministerial intern. We're delighted that you've chosen to join us, and you can find out more about our online offerings by visiting muuf.org/virtual. I also have the honor of serving as the summer minister for the fellowship. Today's service is the first of a 5-part sermon series under the title, What Moves Us? The series is inspired by the UUA Tapestry of Faith program created by the Reverend Dr. Thandayaka, titled What Moves Us, Unitarian Universalist Theology. Through the lens of a number of Unitarian, Universalist, and Unitarian Universalist forebears, the series seeks to empower each of us to reflect on our direct experience to articulate the spiritual power of our faith. In addition to the sermon series, 2 workshops will be offered that complement the material to facilitate reflection and deeper deliberation. The first workshop is called What Moves Us, A Universe of Emotions. It'll be held over Zoom on Thursday, July 30th at 7:00 p.m. The second workshop, What Moves Us, A Map of Experience, will be offered on Thursday, August 13th at 7:00 p.m. I invite you to mark your calendars now, and as always, you can find more information online. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. My name is Liz Roper, and I'm the Director of Religious Education at Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. Because we're celebrating Father's Day in the service, we have a special guest, a lifelong Unitarian who made me into a lifelong Unitarian. Robert Roper, would you like to light our chalice?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome from over the Atlantic, from Dunham Road Unitarian Chapel, near Manchester, England. I'm pleased that Liz has invited me to repeat a few words from the author, Annie Dillard, to start your service. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Thank you.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. You are like no other being. What you can give, no other can give. To the future of our precious children, to the future of the world where we live. Hear the song of peace within you. Heed the song of peace in your heart. Each new beginning shall lead to the harvest. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us on our way.
Today's time for all ages. I have a special guest with me. This is my son, Connor Loflin. Thanks for being here, Connor. We're going to be reading a book that you may be familiar with, Love You Forever. This is written by Robert Munsch and illustrated by Sheila McGraw. A mother held her new baby and very slowly rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she held him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. And the baby grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was 2 years old. And he ran all around the house. He pulled all the books off the shelves. He pulled all the food out of the refrigerator. And he took his mother's watch and he flushed it down the toilet. Sometimes his mother would say, this kid is driving me crazy. But at nighttime, when that 2-year-old was quiet, she opened the door, crawled across the floor, looked up over the side of his bed, and if he was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. The little boy grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was 9 years old. And he never wanted to come in for dinner. He never wanted to take a bath. And when Grandma visited, he always said bad words. Sometimes his mother wanted to sell him to the zoo. But at nighttime, when he was asleep, the mother quietly opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. If he was really asleep, she picked up that 9-year-old boy and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. Well, the boy grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a teenager, and he had strange friends, and he wore strange clothes, and he listened to strange music. Sometimes the mother felt like she was in a zoo. But at nighttime, when that teenager was asleep, the mother opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of the bed. And if he was really asleep, she picked up that great big boy and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. Well, that teenager grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a grown-up man. He left home and got a house across town. But sometimes, on dark nights, the mother got into her car and drove across town. If all the lights in her son's house were out, she opened his bedroom window, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. And if that great big man was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. Well, that mother, she got older. She got older and older and older. One day she called up her son and said, you'd better come see me because I'm very old and sick. So her son came to see her. And when he came in the door, she tried to sing the song. She sang, I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always. But she couldn't finish because she was too old and sick.
The son went to his mother. He picked her up and rocked her back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And he sang this song. I'll love you forever. I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my mommy you'll be. When the son came home that night, he stood for a long time at the top of the stairs. Then he went into the room where his very new baby daughter was sleeping. He picked her up in his arms and very slowly rocked her back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while he rocked her, he sang, "I love you forever, I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby you'll be."
The end. Thanks for joining us, Donna.
George de Benneville is the father of non-creedal universalism in America. He believed that no church is pure in all things, so none can be found that does not contain some truth. Glorious truths are found in every church and religion under the sun. And this glorious chain of truths which we believe will someday unite all of them into one form of love. De Benneville did not want to create another Christian sect or denomination, but rather to unite those which already existed. By contrast, John Murray, who is usually recognized as the founder of the Universalist movement in America as a new Christian church denomination, believed, "We shall never be able to form a friendly union with any one denomination of Christian confessors of faith." De Benneville arrived in America the same year John Murray was born, 1741, and propagated Universalist faith for 39 years before Murray arrived in America from England. This is why de Benneville is called the first preacher of Universalism in America. De Benneville was a highly educated man whose range of vocations and interests was wide and broad. He wrote 6 or 7 volumes on the medical therapeutics of his day. He worked as a medical doctor in Europe and America. He established a ministry to Native Americans. As a schoolmaster, he taught German, French, and Native American youth. He preached widely and regularly. Working with a local publisher, de Benneville oversaw the publication and translation of numerous tracts on the doctrine of universal salvation that helped foster the rise of Universalist faith in America. Like his fellow religionists of the Radical Reformation, de Benneville rejected the ordinance of baptism and the sacrament of the Lord's Supper, affirmed the gospel as an experience of inward revelation, and affirmed the universal restoration and salvation of all human beings to God's eternal and everlasting love. He was influenced by the mystical legacy of Jacob Boehme, and associated with reformers who emphasized spiritual conversion rather than creedal conformity. Members of these non-traditional Christian groups had migrated, like de Benneville, to enclaves in Pennsylvania. Thanks to de Benneville, an English translation of the Everlasting Gospel was printed in 1753 and widely disseminated as a primary source book for the Universalist faith in America. This book, like the Universalist movement linked to it, affirmed the doctrine of the restoration of each and every human soul to the eternal love of God. Eternal damnation and the election of a select few espoused by Lutheran and Calvinist Protestants were roundly rejected as unbiblical and logically untenable claims. By example, de Benneville gave those around him courage to pay attention to their feelings, emotions, and sentiments. "Let us search ourselves well," he said, "and test thoroughly what is within us, whether it degrades or elevates us. The pathway to universal love begins here."
We have a memorial candle to share with you today. We hold Steve Humphreys, Chris Golis, and Valerie Humphreys in our hearts. Steve lost his mother, Frances Humphreys-Rio, on June 15th. Frances passed away in Knoxville at the age of 89. Frances and Steve's father, John, lived in Mississippi at the height of the civil rights movement, to which both were deeply committed. They engaged in many ways, including putting up the Freedom Riders in their home, for which they endured being ostracized by neighbors and fellow church members. Frances was often referred to as a force to be reckoned with. She served as executive director of the Grey Panthers, which engaged age and youth in action, and advocated for women's rights and the rights of elders. Frances' commitment to advocate for youth and elders, for women, and for Black lives, and for the poor showed that she held an intersectional justice lens before that was a thing. She was also a deeply generous soul and loving wife to John Humphreys and later Russell Rio, as well as mother of 4 to Kay, Ed, Patricia, and Steve, a grandmother of 5, including our Valerie, and a great-grandmother of 7. May Frances' light and her legacy of a fierce and faithful love burn brightly in their hearts now and always. Amen.
Oh, the son of mine I love so well, and all the toil it takes. Give to him a garden and keep it clear of snakes. One thing he most treasures is to make his own mistakes. Oh, he goes charging on the cliffs alive, a reckless mountaineer. I could help him not to stumble, I could warn him what to fear. I could shout until I'm breathless, and he'd still refuse to hear. Oh, oh. But you cannot close the acorn once the oak begins to grow. And you cannot close your heart to what it feels and needs to know. But the hardest part of love is letting go. As a child I found a sparrow who had fallen from the nest. I nursed him back to health till he was stronger than the rest. But when I tried to hold it, he would peck and scratch my chest till I let him go. And I watched him fly away from me with bright and self-resolve. A part of me was cursing I had helped it grow so strong. I feared it might go hungry, and I feared it might go wrong. Oh. But I cannot close the acorn once that oak begins to grow. And I cannot close my heart to what it fears and needs to know. But the hardest part of love is letting go. And it's only in Eden grows a rose without a thorn, and your children start to leave you on the day that they were born. They'll leave you there to cheer for them, they will leave you there to mourn, ever so. Like an ark on the charted sea, their lives will be tossed. The deeper is your love for them, the crueler is the cost. And just when they start to find themselves is when you fear they're lost. Oh, oh. But you cannot close that acorn once that oak begins to grow. And you cannot close your heart to what it fears and needs to know. That the hardest part of love is letting go. Hardest part of love is letting go.
One of the core elements of Unitarian Universalism is our insistence for a non-creedal faith. That means we resist attempts to reduce our religious understanding to a static, unchanging, historically bound expression. Revelation for us is not a closed and concluded event, but an ongoing and ever-changing process. We draw guidance and inspiration from our 7 principles and 6 sources, but even those are living documents subject to modification. In this series of sermons under the title of What Moves Us, the first of our 6 sources is going to be central. Here's how we describe the first source. We say that our congregations affirm and promote direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. So the question we will be continuously exploring is, what are the characteristics of the direct experience which moves us? Today is Father's Day, an opportunity to express gratitude for those fathers, biological or otherwise, who have impacted our lives. That's a very good thing to do. However, I'm also keenly aware that not everyone's experience is the same. For some of us, our relationship with our fathers have been difficult, complicated, and perhaps even harmful. That's certainly the case for me. So it's important to honor the diversity of our experiences, which sometimes means acknowledging the inherent ambiguity. I feel a particular tension on Father's Day because I feel a contrast between the experience of my relationship with my own father and the experience of becoming a father myself. In fact, for such a long time, I felt certain that because of the complexity of my family of origin, that I lacked the capacity to be a good father. So becoming a father, especially the very first time, was one of the most unexpectedly overwhelming experiences in my life. I mean, nothing could have prepared me for the overwhelming sense of love I felt. Now, to be clear, I'm not claiming to be a great father or even a particularly good one. I'm a deeply flawed human being, and that is perhaps nowhere more evident than in my family relationships. But what's relevant for my purpose today is to dig into that experience of deep, abundant, and overwhelming love that flooded my soul and continues to impact my life. When I stop and reflect on that experience of profound and boundless love, the feeling that it inspires within me is awe and wonder. The surprise to find such love was even possible felt almost overwhelming. And importantly, there was the recognition of something transcendent in the nature of that experience. In that moment, I was confident that this went far beyond the bounds of affection of a single soul for its biological offspring. There was a moment of insight that as a human being, there was such capacity for love of another human being, and in fact, for all human beings. That moment was sacred. It was nothing short of religious. And there have been a few moments in my life that were so transformative, but not many. That experience of love, abundant and universal, is also present in the story of George de Benneville. For nearly 40 years before the arrival of John Murray, whom we usually recognize as the founder of the official Universalist movement in America, de Benneville had been preaching a Universalist message. Unlike the Lutheran and Calvinist Protestants who espoused eternal damnation and the election of only a select few, de Benneville preached a theology of abundant love for all and explicitly for all races. While his theology remained always rooted in Christianity, its essence was the direct experience of love. There are two quotes of de Benneville that really resonate with me. He said, "The spirit of love will be intensified to godly proportions when reciprocal love exists between the entire human race and each of its individual members." In describing the nature of this love, de Benneville says, "Oh, my dear soul, sink thyself into nothingness and the deepest humiliation, and adore in spirit and in truth the ocean of love." What moves us? George de Benneville would affirm that reciprocal love deeper and broader than an ocean moves us. The Reverend Dr. Thandayaka, author of the UUA Tapestry of Faith curriculum, What Moves Us, Unitarian Universalist Theology, which is the primary source material for this sermon series, has this to say. All of us, in one way or another, have felt loved or have a sense of what such a feeling of being loved and cherished is like. So a question for reflection would be, is the feeling of being loved a feeling that is or could be a foundational experience for your own Unitarian Universalist faith? One of our 7 principles affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Could it be that honoring our personal experiences in all their diversity transforms our collective capacity for compassion into an inclusive and invitational love deep as an ocean? Oh, that would surely be an experience of love, a love that would move us. I conclude with an invitation for you for this week. Think of an action that you might take to offer an unbounded moment of love to someone without expectation of a return. Try to do it in such a way that your kindness is given as a gift without strings. Keep the gesture small as a test for this way of being in the world, and reflect afterwards whether a theology of unbounded universal love might become part of your personal spiritual practice.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Our closing words are from Immortality by Richard Jefferies. It is eternity now. I am in the midst of it. It is about me in the sunshine. I am in it as the butterfly in the light-laden air. Nothing has to come. It is now. Now is eternity. Now is the immortal life. With gratitude, let us go now in a spirit of love. Blessed be.